good evening to everybody. Thank you for the hospitality. Pay my respects to Bhante Dhammaratana and the other Sangha members, and to give my blessings to all of you. Today is a very auspicious day, as you may be aware. It's the full moon day that we call Māgha Pūjā. So historically it was the day when 1,250 fully awakened disciples of the Buddha gathered together at the Weluwanarama without a prior appointment. They just, perhaps the causes and conditions were right, and they came together to pay respects to the Buddha, and he gave a special teaching, Yawada Patimokkha, on that day, which we still remember all this time later. I think many people find it an inspiring story because, as the story goes, those 1,250 disciples were all fully awakened arahants, enlightened beings, and so they were teachers in their own right. They fully understood what the Buddha taught, and yet they still had deep gratitude and respect for the Buddha, the original teacher. And it's a theme that runs through Buddhist practice, is that the qualities of gratitude and respect for teachers and those who have passed the teachings down to us. These are qualities that come from the awakened mind, or the mind that is awakening to the truth. In simple terms, we're not here totally through our own initiative or our own merit. We've also have a debt of gratitude to many other people, from the Buddha himself down to the present day. So many awakened teachers, and just Buddhists, monks, nuns, men and women who have practiced Buddhism and preserved the teachings through the practice to this present day. We can be grateful to all of them. Just in this centre, the Buddhist Library, if there hadn't been people willing to sacrifice and establish this centre in the early years, then we wouldn't be able to sit here today. If there weren't Sangha members willing to teach and organise everybody here, we wouldn't be able to be here today. So this is a very important quality of mine. Humility, gratitude, in Buddhism are considered very important qualities for success, whether you're talking about general spiritual progress, meditation, or even insight. Gratitude, humility lie very much at the centre of spiritual success and the awakening experience, which, as you might notice, goes a little bit against the climate, or the cultural climate we live in, where humility, gratitude are not often promoted. Often, we hear more about self-confidence, independence, knowledge. Other qualities seem to be more prominent in our society nowadays, partly because of our economic system, education system, and so on. So often when Buddhists come to practice the Dhamma, or people new to Buddhism particularly, it's like they have to relearn, revisit these qualities, re-establish them in their hearts. But actually, I think you'll probably agree, when you practice the Dhamma, they start to grow quite organically, quite naturally. And it's not like when you begin the practice you develop humility, gratitude to your teachers and the people who help you, and then later on you discard it because you become awakened. Those qualities stay with you all the way through your practice. There was one time when I was staying with one of my former teachers, Lumpur Anand, who is at Wat Mark Jan in Thailand, and we were visited very lucky, visited by a great teacher, meditation master called Māgha Pūjā, who's passed away now, but in his day he was revered as one of the greatest meditation masters in Thailand. And he came to visit and was chatting with the monks, and we were giving him a foot massage, which is something monks do. One of the few gifts we can give to a teacher is give them a foot massage. And we don't have many possessions or any money or anything like that to give to a teacher, but we can give them some assistance. So often we'll give them a foot massage, and it's a time you can listen to the Dhamma. And one of the monks asked him, quite a bold monk, because Māgha Pūjā was quite fierce sometimes and quite direct in his teachings. But the monk asked him, "What do you do after you become enlightened? What happens next?" Which is probably quite a good question, because you don't get the chance to ask that question very much in life. I mean, who meets an fully awakened person? But we believed that Lungta was a fully awakened teacher, and so everyone waited for his answer, and he said after he had his enlightenment experience and he was finished with his attachment to the world, he talked about the purity of the mind, the wisdom, the compassion that came up through the practice. And then he said, literally the first thing he did after he was enlightened was bow to the Buddha. And he was living on a rocky hill. He wasn't in a building, he was out on the rocks, and so he bowed on the rocks to the Buddha. So, obviously the Buddha wasn't there, but to the image or the mental perception of the Buddha, he bowed to the Buddha for the rest of the night. So he said his experience of enlightenment took place maybe 11 o'clock at night, and then he bowed until 5 a.m. So what does an enlightened teacher do when they've finished the practice, they've done what the Buddha taught them, and they've completed the practice? Well, they practice respect and gratitude for the teacher. So Māgha Pūjā is like that. It's a day when particularly Sangha members like ourselves, we remember our teachers. In the old days when Ajahn Chah, my original teacher, was alive, this day, Māgha Pūjā, was the day when all the monks, and he had many, many students, they would all come together to pay respects to him. It's a day when we remember the qualities of Sangha. But it's not just superficial Sangha, those people who shave their heads, wear the robes, go through an ordination procedure with the monks or nuns. There's also the qualities of what makes Sangha. So you probably have done your evening chanting, you chant in Pali, Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sankho Ujupatipanno Nyayapatipanno Samijipatipanno. These are reflections that we can bring up daily to remember what qualities we are aspiring to and developing in our daily life, in our practice, our spiritual practice. And they're not confined just to ordained Sangha. Everybody can develop the quality of being true and honest to the Dhamma, practicing directly for the ending of suffering. Everybody can develop insight. Everybody can practice with integrity. All the different qualities that we, if you study the Dhamma or listen to explanations, you'll hear the explanations of what the qualities are that make the Sangha, the enlightened Sangha. But all of us can aspire to those. Ajahn Chah used to say that the real quality of an awakened person, these are qualities that arise in your heart through the practice. And that heart, spiritual heart, the citta, it's not bound by being male or female, young or old, rich or poor, Singaporean or any other nationality. These are, you might just say, states of nature, qualities of heart that exist in nature that we can develop through our own efforts, and anyone can develop and aspire to. So the message of the Buddhist teachings is a very positive one. Whatever your starting point in the practice, whether you are ordained or whether you're a lay practitioner, whether you feel you have a lot of suffering, a lot of problems in your life, or you feel you're already quite advanced, wherever your starting point is, the positive message of Buddhism is that you can always change for the better, you can improve through the practice. Excuse me. Nothing is fixed. Our minds, the way we think, the way we act, the way we do things, we can always learn and improve, and that is what Buddhism is all about. It's giving us methods and ways to improve ourselves as human beings, to experience more happiness. Probably that's the simplest aspiration you could say for a human being. What do you aspire to? What do you want? What's your goal? Well, it's to be happy. And the Buddhist message is, well, you can achieve happiness. Of course, you have to create the right causes and conditions for happiness to be experienced. That requires effort, requires study and practice, of course, but it's possible. Nothing is fixed. So even if you're having a really tough time, and everybody does have a really tough time sometimes, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to be like that forever. If you have some faith in the Buddhist teachings, then there's always a way out of your suffering. And that, for me, when I first became inspired by Buddhism, that was one of the most inspiring parts of what the Buddha taught, is that we can all change for the better. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is a foregone conclusion. Once bad, always bad. Once you make a mistake, you're always going to be making mistakes. We can learn. And it's an important principle in Buddhist practice, because often where we do learn is from mistakes, from our suffering. Our suffering is the fertile ground for the arising of faith, because you're looking for a way out of your suffering, and then effort, and then developing more self-awareness, and from that understanding of what the suffering is, what its cause is, and what I can do to change and to end the suffering. Suffering leads on to good things if we treat it properly, like the Buddha treated it. He said, we have a problem as human beings. It's not all rosy success, ease, comfort. Once you're born as a human being, the truth is that life is a mixture, isn't it? There's some pleasure, there's some pain, there's some success, there's some failures. We have good health, we have poor health, ups and downs. Life is a mixture. And the Buddhist message is that that's actually good for us to have a mixture. Many people probably aspire to a heavenly rebirth. In their mind they think, next life I just want to be reborn in heaven. Have a good, easy time, sit back and relax. Just like you might in this life think, when I go on holiday, everything will be fine. Go and lie on the beach, eat as much as I want, sleep as much as I want. But how long does that last? You go on your holiday, there's always an end to that holiday. You're reborn in the most serene, beautiful, pleasant heaven realm. It comes to an end. Nothing lasts like that. Better to learn from suffering rather than just try and always escape from it. Doesn't mean to say we have to look for suffering or deliberately make ourselves suffer, but use it as a place of learning. So this is actually the flavor of Buddhist teachings, and it's why sometimes we're a little bit reluctant to go deeper into the practice, because we know I'm going to have to look a bit more carefully and closely at why I suffer and where it's coming from, and we don't like that. It's our habit is always to seek pleasure, get away from the present moment. If the present moment has some stress, some suffering in it, you just want to get away, don't you? So you go to work, maybe today you went to work, at the end of the day you're feeling tired, so you come home and you just, I just want to sleep or watch my movie or eat some food. We just want to escape from the feelings of tiredness or the problems that may have arisen during our day. But the Buddhist approach may be more before you go off to relax, and it's not necessarily wrong to relax, but before you do that, stop and look and learn, what is this experience of suffering? Where does it come from? Am I creating it out of my own mind rather than it being something that I just have to be with? Is it maybe self-created? This is what brings us to develop so many aspects of our practice. I'm sure all of you understand the practice of generosity, charity, compassion in daily life. We all know that, we all practice that. What is harder is to develop the qualities of mindfulness and wisdom in daily life, because they take more effort. And often it seems like they're somehow separate from the rest of our life. You go to work, how can I be mindful and develop wisdom at work? Or when I'm with my family, how can I develop mindfulness and wisdom? It seems somehow separate, but really it's not. Because when we're living our life, whether it's at work, at home, here, outside, wherever, your mind goes with you every moment of the day. Your body and mind are always there. If stress or suffering arises as an experience in your heart, that's something you can look at and learn from right there and then when it's arising. And sometimes we think of Buddhist practice as something we'll do way off in the future. When I go on retreat, or when I'm retired, then I'll do some practice, or when I go over there, then I'll do my practice. And again, we're not really addressing this word dukkha, suffering that arises for us as human beings. We're kind of pushing it to the future or to the side. But the Buddha pointed out really the place to practice is right there, right where dukkha arises. So whether it's just a very unpleasant thought that arises, or an emotional state, or whether it's a reaction to some situation that's arisen in your day, whether it's to do with your attachment to your body, or maybe you're feeling ill, or you have some health problem or injury. Wherever the suffering is arising, that's where we have to look. And a lot of the Buddhist practice is giving us and helping us create the tools, the skills to look carefully and correctly at what's going on. It's all about revealing the truth, looking more deeply at where suffering comes from and what can I do about it. As you've probably heard, the simile of the thorn. If you have a thorn in your foot, if you're walking along the forest, if you're like me, we live in the forest in Australia, and you walk along the forest, you get a thorn in your foot. Sometimes you're tempted to just try and ignore it and just get by. You don't want to stop and take the thorn out. It's easier just to carry on walking, and you try and tread on the part of the foot that doesn't have pain and get by as long as you can without taking the thorn out. Sometimes it's like that, isn't it? Really, the Buddha said, if you've got a thorn in your foot and it's painful, well, stop and pull the thorn out. Or another thing we tend to do is, if you get a thorn in your foot, you start saying, which tree did it come from? Where did I get this thorn from? Who can I blame? Who should take responsibility for this thorn? Can I sue somebody because I've got a thorn in my foot? Sometimes we go that way. Really what we have to do is stop, look at the base of your foot, find out where the thorn is, pull it out. Even that we don't want to do sometimes, because we know when you grab the thorn it's a bit more painful, and pulling it out there's always a little bit of pain. So even that we don't want to do. So sometimes the pulling of the thorn out is equivalent to just going through some short-term pain or stress for long-term gain and happiness. So like tonight, you're all sitting very well, sitting meditation here, sitting still. During the course of this talk, especially if I talk a long time, there'll be a few painful feelings arise. It's not I'm inflicting that on you, although you might think that. It's just because your bodies are like that. You sit in one posture, one position for a long time, the blood flow changes, things change, so then you start to get a painful feeling. Yeah, that's just normal, isn't it? As you experience different things through your day, there'll be aches and pains, there'll be pain arising, there'll be different problems. But before you move, so as you're sitting here, you might feel, oh, I've really got to uncross my legs or change my posture. That's fine, because a human body does get painful. But before you move, just take a moment to contemplate what is happening here. Why am I moving? Oh, I have a painful leg. Ask yourself some questions. Where does that pain come from? How bad is it? Can I tolerate it more than I think? You learn from that painful feeling before you just escape from it. This is the approach the Buddha gave us. The technical term is the development of mindfulness. And the Buddha said, practice mindfulness directed to your body, directed to feelings, directed to the mind itself, and then to the processes of the mind, how suffering arises, what leads to what can I do to end suffering, what qualities do I need to bring up to end suffering. So understanding more about body and mind with mindfulness and clear understanding, clear awareness. So this is the Buddhist approach, not just escaping from dukkha, not just giving into it as a kind of a fait accompli. It's like, life has just got to be dukkha, there's nothing I can do. But trying to learn from it and developing these skills where you can actually learn from it. And I'm sure you'll all agree what you find is over time is you can learn from it. And this is where wisdom and understanding comes from. Just going back to like sitting here now, I'm sure if you're like me, when I first started practicing meditation, I could sit on the ground like this for a total of 3 minutes, and then I had to get up. And it was not 3 happy minutes, it was 3 minutes of agony. I was about 17, I'd never sat on the floor very much, so as soon as I started learning meditation, it was like, oh, this is hopeless, this is terrible. I thought I'll never be able to meditate. So much pain and so much difficulty. But I could see other people can do it. And, you can all do it. You can look around at each other and say, well, if they can do it, then maybe I can do it. So I used that reasoning of, if they can learn, I can learn. And the learning is, you have to accept, okay, maybe your body does bring you some pain and suffering sometimes, but more important is how do you deal with that pain? What thoughts, what reactions do you have? That you can change. And particularly when you apply mindfulness and wisdom to a painful feeling, the whole perception can change. And most of us don't like pain. We don't want it. We don't want to face it. So this is often one of the obstacles in the beginning of meditation. People think, oh, it sounds like a lot of trouble to me. I don't want to do that. But if you're willing to look and learn, very quickly you can see, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. Most of the pain we experience in meditation is much more bearable than we thought, simply because once you apply mindfulness and bring it up into awareness, you realize maybe it's quite reasonable, maybe it sometimes even disappears. That's not just the pain of the body either, it's also painful emotions, stressful, unhappy mind states, thoughts and feelings. Both. It's both the pain of the body and the mind. When you start to address it with mindfulness and wisdom, as you're learning in meditation, a lot of painful experiences just dissolve. Some of them won't, of course, especially with the body. As we get older, often you can't do much about the pain of the body, it's just there. But what can change is your attitude towards it. And so I can see from all of you sitting here, you've already learned that to some extent, because you wouldn't be able to sit here, would you? I had to learn that, from 3 minutes on the floor, I learned how to sit for an hour or 2. You've all learned that because you're all sitting here now. So we can clearly learn, but we have to keep deepening what we learn how to apply our mind to understand dukkha in all its forms. There's some kinds of dukkha, of course, that we can't do much about. Once you have a body, you're born into this world, there will be feelings of heat and cold. Sometimes you feel tired, sometimes you're hungry, and some kinds of painful feelings you just have to put up with. But others you can change. By changing your attitude, the whole situation can turn around. So it may be something as simple as developing some kindness and compassion as you confront pain, a painful thought or memory, a reaction to some unpleasant situation. If you bring up mindfulness and then apply some kindness and compassion at that moment, your whole way of thinking can change, can't it? So my teacher, Ajahn Chah, used to say, dukkha is our best teacher. And going back to humility and gratitude, you can actually be grateful for these moments of pain and suffering that you have during meditation or even in your daily life. Of course, you're not seeking them out, but when they happen and there's nothing you can do to escape, you can learn from them and they can make you wiser. In Thailand, we used to call the mosquitoes Ajahn mosquito. Because Ajahn means teacher. So you're learning how to deal with that particular problem or suffering. Mosquitoes come, they're annoying, they can even be a little bit painful. Maybe if you're in the deep jungle, you're afraid of malaria. So mosquitoes come, you inevitably react with some fear or anger or irritation. But you're looking at what part of that experience can you change. As you bring up mindfulness, you realize a lot of the suffering is just your own negative thinking about that mosquito. And the mosquito itself, if you're in the forest, there's going to be millions of them and there's not much you can do. Maybe it's different in Singapore where the government just sprays and kills them, I don't know. But in the jungle, you can't get rid of them, but what you can do is change your attitude. So we call them Ajahn mosquito. Ajahn mosquito has come to teach me again to let go of some of my negative reaction, my anger, my irritation, my fear. And it can change your whole experience. Something that was unpleasant and made you annoyed can become something totally tolerable. Doesn't mean to say you learn to like mosquitoes or you're happy with them, but your anger, aversion, irritation can change as you apply, we say the Dhamma, as you apply mindfulness, investigate what's going on. After a while you can learn to sit quite peacefully even with mosquitoes. And if you've learned that, then you can apply the same kind of wisdom to other things in your life. It may be Ajahn manager at my workplace. He becomes my Ajahn. When he gives you too much work or criticizes you or takes advantage of you, then they can become your Ajahn rather than just getting caught into your angry reaction and complaining over and over again. Then your Ajahn manager comes, it's like, I must learn from this, be more mindful of my own reactions and deal with that. I can't change my manager. Who can change their manager or the person that's giving them trouble at work? Very rarely can we do that, but we can learn from the experience. Or it could be Ajahn illness. Suddenly you're struck with some kind of illness that you didn't want, you didn't ask for, but it comes. You can either give in to it and be miserable, upset, complain, blame the doctor for not curing you, blame your family for not looking after you properly or something like that. Or you can say, I'm going to learn from this experience. And the Buddhist approach will be, what can I learn from this? Where can I bring up more mindfulness and more understanding, more compassion? So I'm just giving you here a few examples of how as human beings we can face different painful or unpleasant situations and learn from them. And in meditation, especially in the beginning, a lot of our practice is doing this, learning to be patient with ourselves, our reactions, our thoughts, feelings in the body, learning to be patient, learning to be mindful, and learning to look more closely and see what we can do to change our perception and our reaction to these things. The good news is if you practice this more, you get better at it. You get skill. It's like anything else in life, it's a skill. So from sitting meditation just for a few minutes full of pain and being very unhappy in yourself, you may learn to be able to sit for many minutes. You may still have some pain, but your attitude starts to change. You have more of a relaxed awareness, more mindfulness, more wisdom and understanding, more compassion. As these good qualities, better qualities develop, you can sit a bit longer. The whole process becomes more enjoyable. So then rather than fearing meditation or thinking it's something that's going to bring you a lot of suffering, you start to look forward to it. And you think, this is good for me. And not only it's good for you, it's good for the people around you. Because if you're learning from your experience in this way, you're not giving in to suffering and creating suffering, you're just noting it with mindfulness and equanimity. The people around you will appreciate that. You ask anyone who's in a family and there's one person who meditates, it could be mum or dad, and then you ask the other people in the family, the kids or the brothers or the sisters, you say, how is their meditation affected the family? They'll say, it's so good. They used to get so irritated, they lose their temper, get so worried. Now they're meditating, they're so much happier, everybody is happier. So it's a very direct way that you can help the people around you as well. Because often you'll find, you get that comment, if you're meditating, you're selfish, you're ignoring family, ignoring society. But then if the result of your meditation is that you're becoming more mindful, more compassionate, more wise, aren't these things good for society? Aren't these things good for your family? It does take time, of course, like anything. It's an investment of time and effort, but over time, you'll find, good things arise. So Ajahn Chah used to talk about our spiritual practice. It's like growing a tree. All these beautiful trees in Singapore, they took many years to cultivate. Once upon a time, Singapore had very few trees, and they planted these very small saplings. It's taken 20, 30, 40 years for the trees to grow, but now they're very beautiful and provide us with shade and greenery. Our spiritual practice, our Dhamma practice is like that. You have to be humble, start from small beginnings and trust in the process. Like if you have trust in the Buddha as a wise teacher, the Buddha didn't teach us anything that's going to harm us or harm others. He didn't teach us anything that's a waste of time. He gave us very good and clear advice, what we must do, but he couldn't guarantee you'll get quick results. He didn't say you won't get quick results, but he just said it depends on many factors. Just like growing a tree, you have to look after your tree. You have to water it, fertilize it, get it to the sun, protect it from insects and animals. Then eventually you'll get a good tree. Some trees grow fast, some grow slow, just depends on the tree, doesn't it? Our practice is the same. If you trust in the method and the teacher, and you keep doing it, you keep applying, well, good things will happen for sure. I guarantee that. Because I can see it for myself, and I think probably all of you can already see some of the progress you've made in your practice. But it's not yet complete, is it? We still have more to do. Hopefully, as you get more into your Dhamma practice, you practice the dana, you listen to the talks, you do chanting, meditation, you associate with wise, good people. As you do this more, it gets easier. You learn more how to free your mind from suffering. So suffering may still come up. You have painful experiences, things go wrong, make mistakes. But your attitude changes. You get a little bit wiser. You learn how to shrug it off. They say like water off a duck's back. You just learn to shrug it off and then grow from it and move on rather than always stuck in the past, what went wrong, being self-critical, feeling depressed. Your aim is to keep growing from these experiences. So actually, one thing monks understand, or nuns living, devoting their whole time to the practice, sometimes the more pain, the more problems you have, the better it goes. Doesn't sound right, does it? Because we always have this idea, I want just absolute happiness, no problems, I'm fed up with problems. But actually these problems are often helping us to grow and progress quicker in the practice. Don't forget that, because it's so easy to go the other way, is just I don't want any suffering, any problems, and that we tend to go slow. It's like in part of our heart wants to be spoiled. When you were a kid, you want your parents to spoil you. You don't want your parents to say, do more homework, do more work, clean up your room. We don't like that. We want to be spoiled. Or later on you get married, you want your partner to spoil you. You don't want your partner to say, you've got to do more housework, do more, bring more money into the house, or you don't want that, do you? So part of us wants to be spoiled, and then we start practicing the Dhamma and it comes up, doesn't it? We say, I'll do my meditation tomorrow. Tonight I'm just going to lie here doing nothing. Or I'll go to the temple tomorrow or next week. I don't want to go tonight, I'm too tired. We're always putting off doing the good thing. So a lot of practice is about arousing energy and effort. Partly that comes from the faith in the Buddha, and then maybe living teachers that you hear, that you meet, they inspire you. But in the end it's also just thinking it through for yourself, realizing the value of the practice. It's something the Buddha returned to over and over again. We're born as human beings. This is like winning the lottery in spiritual terms. This is the best form to be born in, to practice Dhamma, to realize the Dhamma, to reach Nibbana. Better than a Deva realm. Certainly better than a ghost realm. Better than an animal realm. Human beings, we have intelligence that we can train and grow, we can develop insight, we can develop kindness, compassion, all kinds of amazing qualities as humans. But we don't know how long we've got, do we? Life is we're not here forever. So it's like we've won the lottery, being born as a human, so we can pat ourselves on the back. Really it's our previous incarnation, last life. We've done enough good karma to be born as a human this life, so we can pat ourselves on the back. But are you going to let it all fritter away? Or are you going to build on being born as a human, meeting with the Dhamma? Are you going to build on that and develop more good karma and progress in your practice? That's the kind of challenge, and we forget this. You go to work, no one says, you're so lucky to be a human being. You go to work, no one says, last life you made so much good karma, now you've been born as a human being, I'm so happy for you. Nobody says that. They just said, do your work, earn your money. So often life is reduced down to a very simplistic kind of, do your work, earn your money so you can pay the bills, and we forget the Dhamma. Again, this is this challenge, coming back to appreciating what we've got so far. We've had parents, we've given us birth, we've got our human body. Even if it's not perfect health, as long as we've got reasonable health, we've got our intelligence, we can hear the Dhamma, we can do good things, we can learn to meditate, practice mindfulness. This is the lottery winning the lottery in terms of the evolution of a spirituality. This is as good as it gets. That's something worth thinking about, because we tend nowadays to always be complaining and finding what's wrong with ourselves and society and our life. Actually, we've already achieved a lot of good things, but we have to keep going. Otherwise we use it up, don't we? It is like money. Even if you do win the lottery, what happens? You put it all in the bank. If you're not careful, you spend it all, or you give it away, and after a while it's gone. You've been born as a human. You've got this wonderful opportunity, but look how fast time flies by, doesn't it? We're all getting older every day. It seems like 5 minutes ago we were 20, now we're 30, 40, 50, 60. Time is whizzing by, it's not waiting for anyone. It's not fair, but it's true. Time waits for no one. And if we keep putting off doing good, well, our chance will be gone. One day we'll be on our deathbed, and we'll say, I should have learnt to meditate. I should have done more dana. I imagine in Singapore it's the same as Melbourne. You know, we have a lot of palliative care centres, and there's one nurse who wrote a book about her experiences with working in palliative care with the dying. And she said one constant recurring theme is that just the regrets of the dying. People, when they're closer to their death, they keep thinking how they should have used their time better for their family, for their spiritual practice, for learning about life. Because most people are devoting all their time of their adult life, the majority of it, and their energy and their intelligence to jobs, working, earning money, a lot of which goes to other people. Well, fair enough. We do, of course, many good things, of course. We serve the community, we help, we say progress, but at the same time we often neglect our spiritual practice. And then what happens? By the time you retire, you leave your job, you know, they don't care about you, they've gone, and then you're left there thinking, what happened? What happened to my life? Where did it go? It's almost too late. It's never too late, but it's almost too late, isn't it? So don't get to that point. Use your time while you're younger, fitter, stronger. Divide your times, give priority, give importance to the Dhamma. And it doesn't go against whatever other things you're doing in life. You know, the Dhamma promotes kindness, compassion, mindfulness, wisdom. So you're practicing the Dhamma, all of those qualities are going to help you to have a happier family, better personal health, hygiene, work better, be able to focus on your job, do your job better. It's not like they're at odds. You know, people who meditate become more mindful. When they're mindful, they concentrate better, they understand things better, so then they can go and do a job and do that job of work better. Good example of that is Buddhist monks and nuns. They live in, particularly in the West, non-Buddhist countries. You go and start a monastery, you learn to do all kinds of skills that you were never trained for, simply because you've practiced meditation, you learn how to use your mind, and then you have a necessity of learning how to build, how to administer, how to use computers, how to do all kinds of things. There is a danger with that. You can get distracted by it, but in the positive light, you can see once you're learning how to use your mind better, you can apply it to every aspect of your life. How to be a better citizen of Singapore, how to be a better husband, wife, parent, child, how to do your job better. Because what are you doing as you bring up awareness? You start to filter out the negative, the obstacles, the mental states that cause us stress. You're starting to filter them out. It just as the water we drink needs to be filtered to get rid of the toxins, the pollution. Mentally we have to filter out the mental toxins. And they will come up. If we don't practice, they'll come up. They'll run our lives for us. How often are we following a particular train of thought based on some kind of greed or attachment, jealousy? Sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes just basic anger or negativity. That train of thought takes over the mind, then our speech, our actions follow along, and we end up suffering, and maybe creating more and more suffering through our karma as well. It's happening all the time. So that's another factor in why we should practice. It's not really that we have a choice, practice or not, do it this life or leave it for next life. The danger is if we don't practice, things get worse. Our mind goes downhill. Ajahn Chah used to say it's like water, isn't it? Maybe you don't understand this in Singapore because you don't have mountains, but where I live, we live in the mountains. When it rains, the water lands on the mountains. It always flows downhill. You get streams coming down the hill, they join into rivers, and the rivers go to the sea. It's always going downhill. Ajahn Chah used to say human mind is like that. It's always, if you're not guarding it, training it, developing it, it tends to go down to the lowest spot. So the easiest thing is give in to your anger, give in to your greed, give in to your jealousy, give in to your anxiety. That's the easy way. But what's the result? You have to look back and say, I'm not getting any more peaceful for this. I'm not growing. I'm not understanding things better for this. I get worse off. So we actually don't really have a choice. if you start to understand your mind and understand the Dhamma, there's just no choice. You have to practice. You have to maintain where you've got to and then develop further. We're very good at doing this with our education and our career management. Of course, we love to find ways to improve our career opportunities, do a new course, get a new qualification. We love that. But as far as understanding the Dhamma, it's like, give it second place, leave that for later. Eventually it catches up with us. So don't be caught out. Put some effort into hearing the Dhamma, practicing the Dhamma, because in the long run it's a better investment. Career will only last so long, and then you'll finish. Dhamma is permanent in the sense your mind and body are with you right to the last day of your life. How well are you looking after them? A while ago I visited a man in Melbourne who was dying of cancer. And he had, can't remember the cancer, maybe cancer of the lymph. And he'd been in hospital for 7 months. He's very fortunate. His job, the company gave him time off without getting rid of him. They said, as long as it takes to recover, we'll hold your position open for you. So he's very lucky. He's in hospital to the point where the doctors said, there's nothing we can do for you. We've tried everything, all the different treatments, therapies. It's not working. Your cancer is getting worse. You've only got a short time to live. You might as well go home, be with your family. He was so angry. He was angry with the doctors for not curing him and the staff in the hospital for not helping. He went home and he took all his anger out on his family. You didn't help me. Nobody's helped me. Then his company finally let him go because they realized he's not coming back. So he's angry with the company. So he's just boiling with anger until one day he had a realization. He said, I'm going to die. Am I going to die with a mind boiling hot, full of anger? I don't want to die like this. I want peace. What can I do? So he started going back to Buddhism because he had some Buddhist past, some training in meditation and had read Buddhist books. So he went back to that. And then they invited me to go and visit. And he was basically revolutionizing his whole approach to his illness. And instead of spending all his time thinking about his illness, complaining about it, getting angry with everyone else, he just put that one side. He said, well, not much I can do about it. The doctors have said that. So now I'm going to focus on my mind. And what does my mind need? My mind needs mindfulness, just basic awareness, and then compassion. Compassion for me, I'm the one dying, but also compassion for all the people around me, the gratitude, the appreciation. That's what I need to develop. So for the last 3 months of his life, he said he just spent all his time with thoughts of kindness, compassion and gratitude. And he was so peaceful. All his family, who were originally kind of like very shy to help him because he was so grumpy and so critical, they all appreciated this change. So he was had all these crowds of people coming to look after him every day because they were so inspired and so happy being around him. Of course he did die, but he died peacefully. And everybody had such a good memory of him. It was so helpful to them. It's a very good example of our life. How do you want to live? Do you want to live caught up in your suffering, complaining, blaming everyone else, being miserable? Or do you want to learn from it and push through it and develop the qualities that will take you out of your suffering? We can do that. Sometimes it's the very crisis or the dukkha that comes up in our life that prompts the effort to do that. Often it's when we are faced with illness or we lose our job or we have a relationship problem that turns us to the Dhamma. That's a bit of a problem sometimes because as a monk you see that. When people are suffering they come to the monk, I want a blessing, give me teachings, I want to learn meditation. And then the problem's solved, off they go and you never see them again. So sometimes we're a little bit short-sighted. It's a bit like that story when Ajahn Chah first went to England from Thailand. He was invited to go by the English Sangha Trust with the idea maybe of starting a monastery overseas. And in those days, the aeroplane would take off from Bangkok, and I believe they would refuel in Pakistan, Karachi, and then go to Rome, Italy, and then go to London. So there's like several stops, not like today, it's all the way through. And when they're taking off from the airport, I believe in Karachi airport, they're taking off, the wheel broke, one of the wheels broke, but they were already taking off into the sky, so they didn't land again, they carried on flying to Rome. Ajahn Chah and the monks were on the plane, and before they landed in Rome, the captain makes an announcement, we've got a problem with the undercarriage, the wheels, we can't guarantee a fully safe and comfortable landing, I'm sorry, please brace yourself, prepare yourself. And meanwhile they're flying around the airfield while on the ground the people assessed the damage, and they could see all the ambulances coming out and all the fire engines coming out. Everyone's looking, they go, oh no. So what do? They go to Ajahn Chah and they say, please, 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 Ajahn Chah, please, can you protect us, bless us, spread metta? As you do, when there's a crisis, then you think of the monks. You go. So Ajahn Chah, the monks who were with him, they said he sat in meditation, and their belief is he went into deep state of samadhi, totally still. And when Ajahn Chah enters samadhi, it's a totally different experience, like a very powerful effect. So we believe maybe spread his energy around the whole plane just to keep things together. So everybody was calm, the plane landed, and there was no problem. They landed safely, no damage, no one was hurt. So then they're all leaving the plane, and they all the passengers go up to the captain. Oh, thank you, you did such a good job. And the air hostesses, thank you, you did such a good job. We're so happy. And Ajahn Chah and the monks were sitting at the back. They're the last ones to go off the plane. They're just sitting there. And Ajahn Chah just nudges the monk next to him and says, see, when there's a crisis, there's suffering, they come to the monks. But when everything's fine, they forget the monks. And that's our mind, isn't it? You know, if we're honest, when there's a problem, Buddha, help me. When there's no problem, forget the Buddha. That's where we're getting stuck. If there's a problem, that's the time to really learn and keep learning. Don't give up. Don't stop. Just because things get better, you don't stop your practice. You continue. You really have to learn how to keep some continuity. That's why there's such a value of meeting Sangha. When you meet Sangha, they're people who have dedicated their lives to the practice of Dhamma, so they help pull you along. You go and you make offerings, you listen to a talk, you chant. If you keep having those inputs into your life every day or regularly through your life, it keeps uplifting your mind, you keep pressing on, progressing in your practice. Of course, if you leave it behind, your mind, you won't have much faith, you won't seem to get much benefit from the practice. It's up to us to keep going. Again, sometimes we're kind of plagued by what other people tell us about Buddhism. They say, oh, you go to the temple, you meditate, you meet the monks. What good does that do you? You sound like you're wasting your time. People say that, don't they? But it's never a waste of time. Even if you meditate and your mind seems all over the place, you're still learning something, aren't you? You're learning what your mind is like when it's all over the place. You bring up some extra mindfulness in the middle of that, agitated, restless state of mind. You still learn something. Again, it's like Ajahn Chah used to say, it's like for monks, every day you go out on alms round. And maybe Singapore, you're a wealthy country, so for monks, every day you get food, and it's good quality food. I can attest to that. Very kind. But say you're in a very poor country or a poor part of a country, monks go out, maybe just poor farming region where the people have very little money. Sometimes you go out, you just get plain rice. You come back and plain rice. Sometimes you get some curry, some fruit, but sometimes plain rice. But as a monk, you can get by with plain rice. Maybe just for a day or two, and then some better food comes along. You can manage. It's not the end of the world. Meditation is like that. When you meditate in the day when it's like, I feel so tired and my mind is all over the place, I'm not getting anywhere. that's the day you're eating plain rice. You can survive. You're still getting somewhere. It's just it's not as good as the day when you enter samadhi. It's like, oh, so peaceful, so still, bright, and there's so much energy and so much happiness. That's the day you get the good curry. It's like that, isn't it? You can't expect to get the best food every day. Sometimes it's better, sometimes worse. You can't expect to have a brilliant, perfectly peaceful mind every time you meditate. But you learn from it, don't you? You learn from the times when there's something going on. That's what you learn from. Why am I so angry today? Why am I so worried today? Why am I falling asleep today? That's the challenge. As you're meditating, you're learning from these experiences. And it may be just little by little, chipping away, developing some extra mindfulness, some extra understanding. It may take time, of course. But if you keep going, eventually you understand yourself. Once you understand yourself, you've got your own refuge. It's like they say that's when the Buddha arises in your mind. You know, the Buddha, to start with, it's always a statue, isn't it? The Buddha out there. But as you practice, it's like you're bringing the Buddha, the qualities of the Buddha, into your heart. So as you get more patience, more mindfulness, more wisdom, more compassion, little by little, inch by inch, the Buddha is starting to arise in your heart. So the Buddha is not simply some historical figure 2,500 years ago or some deity. Really, the Buddha means these qualities that we're developing in our practice. So any moment you bring up mindfulness and you bring your attention back to the present moment, maybe you see a mind state, an emotion arise, pass away, you're seeing, oh, this is impermanent, and you let it go. It's like a little bit of the Buddha has come into your heart at that time. And the Buddha said that kind of insight, when you have mindfulness and insight and see that all the different mental states you're experiencing are impermanent, the feelings, the experience of your body is impermanent, it's changing. When you see that, you're also seeing emptiness. Because what is changing all the time, we say cannot be a lasting permanent self, because it's changing. So when you have that insight, the Buddha said that is the most powerful good karma a human being can have. Because it changes your whole insight, your whole way of looking at life. You start to accept, things change. The world outside is always changing. My thoughts and feelings are changing, my body is changing. And when you accept that, you see the truth, you know the truth, the mind goes peaceful. You get happiness. It doesn't sound like it to start with. You think, seeing impermanence, how does that make you happy? But if you really see impermanence, it makes you happy because you're letting go. You're letting go of that clinging, which is the cause of suffering. And once you let go, it's like, oh, this is good. It's like relief. And we've probably all experienced it sometimes. We've had something weighing down on our mind. We've finally broken through. We've understood, I really don't need to think about this anymore. I can let it go. I can just be with it, accept it, but then let it go. We've all had that sometimes, but we need to deepen it and bring it up over and over again. So this is why wherever suffering is arising, that's where wisdom can arise too, right close together. It's not like wisdom will arise next year when I go on retreat way over there in some other country. Wisdom can arise right here, right now, at home, at work, in this temple, wherever. If you bring your mind to the present moment and apply the Dhamma, then the Buddha is arising right there. So I've taught for quite a while now. Maybe I'll end the formal talk here and wish you all well in your practice. May you be free from obstacles and dangers. May you all progress in the Dhamma. May you all reach the state of awakening.
So right now we have time for a few questions. So anyone has got any questions?
Thank you, Ajahn, for the insightful talk of mindfulness bliss in everyday life. My question is regarding this mindfulness for the whole day. We were taught that we have about 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day in our head. So given that, is it possible to be mindful the whole day? Because just letting the thoughts go by would take a lot of time. So does letting go part of mindfulness, or is it not? So can we be mindful for the whole day?
Always can, otherwise enlightenment would be impossible. So the Buddha and all the awakened teachers have proven it's possible.
What about for lay people?
Lay people, monks, the challenge is the same. We have to put effort into the practice. Letting go comes from wisdom. When you see the harm of clinging and holding on, you want to let go. Just as you touch fire, then you know it burns, it hurts, you don't touch again. You cling to something with a sense of self. Could be a painful feeling or a happy feeling even. Could be an emotional state, a memory, a thought. If you cling, there'll be some suffering coming from that. Because you cling to things that are impermanent. Well, we don't like the change. We want to hold on to them, and they change on us. So we start to suffer with them. So mindfulness is the vehicle that brings wisdom into play. They work hand in hand. Mindfulness alone probably can't get you fully to enlightenment, but it's not a bad quality to develop. The Buddha said it's never wrong. But mindfulness holds your attention so then you can contemplate and reflect and see the nature of things, which is wisdom. So ultimately it's wisdom that lets go. But as you practice these qualities, they merge together. So when you get more experience in the practice, you don't sort of say, now I will do mindfulness, now I will do wisdom so much. It's more they are rising together and you're investigating, and it may become very fast. You just notice where you're clinging to some view or some thought or some painful feeling, and you're reacting with suffering, and you say, suffering, let go. And it may be very quick. And the whole process gets a little bit easier through the practice. Like any skill, it's a skill. Once you become skilled, then it seems from other people observing you, it's like, wow, how can they do it so well? It's like anything, any skill, you see somebody who's skilled at playing an instrument or a sport or any kind of skill on a computer, whatever, if they've done it a lot, it seems effortless. And it's like, wow, how can they do that? But you have to realize they've practiced so much in the past that they've got to that point where it seems effortless. Meditation is similar. You meet teachers like Ajahn Chah or other great teachers. It seems like they don't have to do anything. They're just always mindful. They're always letting go because they practice to that point.
What about when we are asleep? Can we be mindful when we are asleep also?
True. Like they say, the awakened one, the arahant, doesn't dream. Even though the body is resting, the mind is still mindful. And it doesn't fall into states of greed, anger and delusion. It's still pure all the way through sleep. But it's an affair of the body, isn't it? Your body needs some sleep, rest. Otherwise you get sick and die.
Next question.
Thank you, Ajahn. Can you share more about faith or saddha and its role in the practice? How should one deal with faith in the triple gems when it waxes and wanes like the moon? Thank you.
You could even say that is a skill, how to bring up more faith, sustain your faith. It's a necessary quality of the mind in the practice. So one of the best ways to develop and keep faith is to stay close to good teachers, good people, Kalyana Mitta. So if you have, it could be Sangha, it could even be lay people who practice the Dhamma, you associate with them, you meet them, that helps. If you're more cut off, well, there's still social media and YouTube and all the other things that can help. You can listen to a Dhamma talk every day if you want. You can do things that help sustain your faith, nourish it. But I would recommend closeness to the Sangha is probably the best source of faith, because Sangha have dedicated their life to the practice. You might not know what level of awakening they have or wisdom, but if you associate with them regularly, they help to pull you along. You get a good example, you hear the teachings, you get the right kind of example for you to then apply that and bring it up into your life. So stay as close to Sangha and good people as you can. The other way faith arises is through using our own wisdom and intelligence and reflecting on things. So when you have stress, as I've been explaining, don't just give in to it and give up. Stop and say, what can I do about this? And that will lead you to look for the teachings. Just as the Buddha himself, when he first left the palace, he went out into the town, he saw sick people. I'm sick today. Saw sick people, old people, saw funerals taking places with corpses. That brought up questions. Oh, am I going to be like that? Am I going to get old, sick and die? And then the last thing he saw was a samana walking mindfully through the town. It's like, this is the way out. So when you experience dukkha or when your faith is failing, look for the way out. You have to do that looking. No one can do it for you. So go and listen to some Dhamma. Go and meet the Sangha. If you get into that good habit, then your faith often is sustained through your life. You ask yourself, where do I put my faith? Where is my interest? Is it, in Thailand we have a joke, you say, some people it's Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, go to the Buddha for refuge. Some people will say, I don't know what the name of the banks are here, but Singapore Bank Saranang Gacchami. Some people are putting their faith in the bank or something else very worldly. Is where your mind is going is where your faith will come from. So if you're putting all your faith in your favourite soccer team or your bank or something, well, you're not going to get much idea how to get out of suffering from that. So put your faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Keep associating with those things in your mind, not just externally. Think about the Dhamma. Bring it into your heart. Reflect on it. Learn from it, and then you'll get the benefit.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ajahn. May you recover soon.
Thank you.
Hi, Ajahn. I would like to ask about the question about fear. Recently, I noticed quite a bit of fear in me. Of course, during that situation where the fear arises, I noticed that I was being pulled by, how to say this, like being influenced, being attacked probably by the fear. Yeah. So after the fear, everything, the scenario over, I just try to do reflection about the fear, but I don't feel the same fear that I don't feel the same fear that I fear during that time. So I'm not too sure how's the right way if, let's say, I want to observe the fear during that time, and also, like right now, I don't have that fear.
It sounds like you're doing basically the right thing,
Okay.
but just keep working on it. Keep working on bringing up mindfulness, ideally through a meditation practice done regularly. So at those moments when you have fear, and it's very overwhelming as a feeling, and the negative thoughts come,
Yes.
imagination takes over. That's when you turn to your meditation object. Could be the breath, could be recollection of the Buddha, could be cultivation of loving kindness. And the more you can bring up your meditation object at that time when you're afraid,
Right.
it will help to undermine the fear. It may still be there and a very strong feeling, but now you have something to go towards, better, different. That's the first thing.
Okay.
The second, like you say, is to reflect on it. Like when that fear came before, it came up and then it went away again. So you know for sure it's not permanent. It's not really who you are. It's not a fixed self. It's just a state of mind that comes and goes according to conditions. So sometimes you may make adjustments in your life. You try to reduce being in fearful situations, but it's not always possible. But you do know it's transient, it changes. And you can say, at this very moment, I hope you're not afraid. So you know for sure, 100% fear has gone from your mind at this moment. Therefore, it's not such a big deal, because you know it comes and goes. It's not pleasant, it's not what you want, but it will go. Next time you're falling into fear, remember this time. Oh yeah, this will pass, this fear will pass. As soon as you bring up that recognition, then again it undermines it, it starts to subside quicker. And you realize really it is a feeling and it's real at the time, but it will pass. If you can focus on your mind on the Dhamma, mindfulness, try to bring up compassion, wise reflection, it will pass much quicker. Eventually it won't come up at all if you keep applying the same remedy, the same practice. So be very patient. You know, some fear is so overwhelming, you feel there's nothing you can do at that time, but you can be patient with it. You say, okay, I'm afraid, but I'm not going to do anything foolish. I'm just going to be with this until it passes. You can still do that. There's always something you can do. You'd never have to feel defeated by it.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Any other questions?
Ajahn, I would like to ask, how would you practice mindfulness at the point of death? I have a friend who is suffering from cancer, and I'm just trying to figure out, is there any advice for him to be able to keep in mind so that he can actually work with his mind and so that he can pass in peace?
Well, if there's somebody who has done some meditation before, the good thing would be to encourage them to keep returning to that meditation object and practice that they've done before, even if they're lying in a hospital bed, very weak, sometimes during the day to practice that meditation. So it could be the breathing meditation, for example. They've got many hours lying in bed, not much to do. They can turn to the breath at those times for as much as they can. You know, they summon up some energy, follow the breathing for a period of time and get used to doing that, using their free time. A very good way to counter the anxiety, the fears, the worries. Keep going to the breath to calm the mind down. And, you know, as long as you're alive, you've got the breath. So you've always got something you can turn to. As a friend, you can do it with them. You visit them. You say, let's do some breathing meditation. And you do it together. And as you sit, you share your merits and your goodwill with that person. And you get them to do it. There's always something you can do. And if the atmosphere around them supports it, you know, you're practicing mindfulness, you're not giving in to your panic, your grief, your suffering, that will help them. You know, what's the worst thing for somebody who's dying is everyone crying, everyone going, oh, why is this happening? Everybody complaining or saying this is a terrible thing, you've got to fight it, we're going to get through it. You know, sometimes we have to just be more calm and accepting in the situation so that helps them to be clearer. But encourage them to bring the mindfulness up, so maybe go to the breath. And literally, if they're still conscious when the time comes to die, they can follow the breath right to the very last breath. I know that because I've seen people do it. It's possible. If you're unconscious, well, that's different. You maybe have to just practice the breathing meditation until you're unconscious. But at the moment of death, if you're still awake, you can follow the breath. It will no doubt get very difficult, but you can still use it as an object. And you keep your mind in the present moment. You don't have to worry about the past. You forgive everyone, let the past go. Don't have to worry about the future because it hasn't happened yet. You just stay with the breath. Keep your mind calm, mindful in the present moment. If they can do that, very good practice right at the end of your life. There's other connected practices. So if someone they're aware that they might die soon, we'll get them to reflect on their life, appreciate all the good that they've done, other people have done in their life. Get them to forgive everyone if they have any bad feelings that they're remembering about somebody, some anger. Get them to forgive, let it go, and get them to focus on good things, the good things about their life. Help to remind them of those good things. These help. These practices help.
Yes, we have time for one last question.
Ajahn Kalyano, thank you so much for your teaching. I'm full of gratitude. My question is simple. Is it ever too late? Is it ever too late?
For what? For what?
For understanding and gaining wisdom.
Never too late. There's always the opportunity to learn from our experience right up to the last breath. As long as we have a mind, we've heard the teachings, we can apply those teachings to our experience. We can gain some wisdom, we can let go of some attachment, we can find more peace in every situation. It's never hopeless. It requires effort, practice, of course, but we can always do something. The Buddha said, if you're not sure what to do, just bring up mindfulness. Go to your breath, recite the Buddha's name, something that will bring you to the present moment, cut through whatever experience of suffering you have. You can always do that, and it's always good. So there's always something we can do in every situation.
Thank you for the encouragement.
So we have come to the end of tonight's session, and tonight is the last talk for Thanajan's trip to Singapore this time around. And on behalf of everyone, the organizers as well as all of us who have attended Thanajan's talk, I'd like to seek Thanajan's forgiveness for if we've done any wrong through body, speech or mind. And we would also like to invite Thanajan to come back to Singapore as soon as possible so that we can be as close as the Sangha as possible. And wish Thanajan good health, and may you recover soon. Thank you, Thanajan.
And we must express our appreciation to everybody who's attended the talks, helped to look after us, provided us with food and accommodation. We appreciate that, and we also ask forgiveness if we've done anything inappropriate or wrong, or if I said anything that doesn't make sense, just discard it, let it go. And I'll finish giving you a blessing for good health, long life and happiness. Yatthavarivaha pura paripuranti sakarang eva meva itotinang betanang upakapati ichitam patitang tumhang kipameva samichatu sabhe purantu sankapha Janto panaraso yata manicho tiraso yata sapitio vivajanto sabaroko vinasatu mate bhavatwantarayo sukhiti kayuko bhava abhivadana silizanicha muta pachayino chataro dhamma vatanti ayuvano sukhang palang bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata Sabha Buddhanubhavena, Sabha Dhammanubhavena, Sabha Sankhanubhavena, Sata Soti Bhavantu Te.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.